In today's video, I am in Auschwitz in Oświęcim in Poland, which is now a museum, which once was a place where the German Nazis occupied during World War II and the Holocaust. And this place was a place where the prisoners were kept. So now I am here in Auschwitz #1 at the museum, and it says here this site is preserved for future generations thanks to, and here it says, in loving memory of those who perished in the Shoah, may their memories always be a blessing, and in honor of those who survived, who left this terrible place and kept the human spirit alive. And this place was once a extermination camp for Jewish people and other people across Europe. So we'll make our way in and see what is left over, the remainings of people's personal items which they have inside, which is now a museum. So what we can see here is coffins placed just before the interment at the grave that was dug out in the vicinity of KL Auschwitz. So this here looks like the mass grave. There are more images that can be seen from Auschwitz. So this says the funeral procession is leaving the grounds of Auschwitz-Birkenau. And this is former prisoners returning home. Transportation means were organized by the Soviet soldiers and the Polish Red Cross staff. The group of female prisoners is leaving the camp of Auschwitz. And this is the staff of the Polish Red Cross along with the Soviet doctors and nurses. There are more information here which you can read and have a look before you make your way into the museum. This is a photo of a hospital room in block 21 in the middle of the Polish Red Cross staff looking after ill prisoners. You can see the prisoners, they're keeping their blankets on them because it must have been really, really cold. In freezing conditions, they only had just a thin layer of clothes. Photograph taken a few days after the liberation to show the living conditions for female prisoners in the camp. So these are the youngest prisoners after being liberated from Auschwitz. And this one says no photographs were taken on 27th January 1945 when the camp was liberated. Therefore, the Soviet cameraman tried to reenact the moment of the liberation. This here is the gates, which people would have made their way through, not having no clue, no idea what they are going to or what would be. By order of Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler in 1940, the SS requisitioned the former Polish army garrison in Oświęcim that had been taken over by the German army after Poland defeat in 1939. The prisoners were mainly men and initially mostly Poles. And this is how the prisoners were. And it says thousands of prisoners left this way for hours long hard labor in the evening. They returned to the camp completely exhausted, carrying the bodies of those who had perished. Really, really sad part of history. And these are the gates. Hundreds of prisoners and Soviet prisoners of war died here, quarrying gravel of the expansion of the camp. Severely malnourished, many were too weak to do the back-breaking work. Others were beaten to death. The SS also carried out executions by shooting here. It's a really sad place, the things that happened here in the Auschwitz concentration camp. And it says there at the top, work shall set you free. These are the gates which many people would have arrived and made their way through, not knowing what would be their destiny once they arrived here. So this is where we are now. And these wires were once electric, which you can see here. This barbed wire. The corpses of prisoners shot while trying to escape were often displayed here as a warning to others. The blocks, they are numbered here. This is 24A. Camp orchestra had to be assembled here to play marches while the prisoners filed past. And this was to help prisoners keep in step and make it easier to count them as they went to and from work. And this photograph was taken by the SS officer. And this one says, following successful escapes by Polish prisoners, the German police would sometimes arrest their relatives and imprison them in the camp. They were made to stand here under a sign stating that until the escape was apprehended, they would remain in the camp. And this was meant to be a warning for the other prisoners. This information shows that all of the work that you can see being done here was done by the prisoners rather than construction machinery, supervised by the SS and prisoner overseers, who beat them at the slightest opportunity. I'm now making my way into block 15. Okay. On September 17th, 1939, the Red Army crossed the Polish border, implementing an agreement concluded earlier with the Germany on dividing up the Polish state. And here is a map. I'm now going to show you a point where the prisoners were hung here in Oświęcim. In this place, the SS man in charge of the roll call received reports on the number of prisoners present. In the event that any of them were missing, the remaining prisoners were punished by having to stand at attention for long periods of time, regardless of the weather condition. So this place here was a place of execution and hangings. Polish prisoners hanged on 19th July 1943 during the biggest public execution in KL, Auschwitz. And here are the people that got executed and hanged right behind me. This booth is where the SS man responsible for conducting the roll call and collecting reports on the number of prisoners took shelter during inclement weather. Block 18. So I'm making my way down into this corridor now, and I can see a video playing of how it once would have been when the Jews were once removed from a place where they would be staying. I came across a photo of the prisoners when they arrived in Auschwitz-Birkenau. And here are the SS soldiers, and here are the prisoners, having no clue, no idea what fate. I'm not sure how many blocks there are in Auschwitz in this concentration camp, but the blocks are numbered. 19A block, And to my left is 18A block. This is block number 7. This prisoner barracks shows living conditions in the main camp Auschwitz I. They differed according to the particular period of the camp's existence. The number of prisoners assigned to each barrack varied from 700 to over 1,000. So here is a typical interior of a prisoner's room during the first few weeks of the camp's existence. And this room here is a typical interior of a room for prisoners until spring 1941. Prisoners slept crowded together on straw mattresses. In the morning, they had to gather up the mattresses and arrange them into the corner of the room. And you can see the mattresses are laid out on the floor. So as I make my way down along this corridor now, there are photographs of the people that got killed here in Auschwitz. Loads of photographs of people that got killed here in Auschwitz. You can see they have their names here and they have their numbers, what they were given. This one has their number here and you can see their number here. And here are the toilets. And this was the washroom from 1941 to 1945. So this is the interior of the prisoner's room with the beds, as you can see inside the bunk beds, where people were crammed up and they had no space whatsoever. And here are the photographs of the images of the people. Also, I can see that their profession was on the photographs as well. So I can see this one was a teacher, this one was an architect, this one was a merchant, this one was a pupil, and this person here was a mayor. Let's make our way into block 6. And it says here, children were also among those liberated. Jewish families on the unloading platform. So this is when they got off the wooden carriage and they was unloading onto the platform. And Roma Gypsy children, victims of Dr. Josef Mengeles, medical experts. Jewish families in front of gas chamber and crematorium. And these are the clothings of the victims, the shoes that they wore, wooden shoes. And the victims' names, where they're from. So this person here was Polish, 15 years old, in Auschwitz since the 6th of April 1941, died in 1942. So within 1 year of being in the concentration camp. And here was only here for 1 month, you can see. In Auschwitz since 26th of February 1942, died 26th of March 1942. That was exactly 1 month All of these images here are photographs of kids. And this is here a child's clothing, child's shoe. The Nazis deported about 232,000 children and young people to KL Auschwitz, including 216,000 Jewish children, 11,000 Roma Gypsy children, 3,000 Polish children, and 1,000 Slavic children and other nationalities. The majority of the Jewish children perished in the gas chambers immediately after arrival. Altogether, about 22,000 children and young people of various nationalities were registered as prisoners at KL Auschwitz. On 27th January 1945, Red Army soldiers liberated about 650 children and young people, of which 450 were under 15 years old in the camp. These are the outfits, what they were given once they arrived here in Auschwitz. Wooden shoes, leather shoes, regardless the weather, they would wear these clothes. Let's make our way into 5A block. And this is the room where all of the shoes are stored from the victims of the Holocaust. This is so eerie. Look at all the shoes from the victims of the Holocaust. All of these people that got perished. And I can see that there are children's shoes there as well. So many shoes. That was in number 4, so now we are in number 5, and I can see luggages, suitcases with names written on them. So these are the people that once they got off of the wooden carriage, the train, they would have to hand over their items. And here they are, the people that perished here. This is what's remaining from the victims of the Holocaust. Just their empty luggages. More shoes. A child's shoe, a child's jacket. This is a child's clothing. So here at the side of the concentration camp, or at the back, I have came across fire brigade reservoir built in the form of a swimming pool, probably in early 1944. So here it says Stammlager extermination, and this is block number 4. And it says here, those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Auschwitz was the largest Nazi German concentration camp since 1942, also mass extermination center for Jews. In the years 1940 to 1945, the Nazis deported at least 1,300,000 people to Auschwitz. 1,100,000 Jews, 140,000 to 150,000 Poles, 23,000 Roma Gypsies, 15,000 Soviet prisoners of war, and 25,000 prisoners from the other ethnic groups. 1.1 million of these people died in Auschwitz. Approximately 90% of the victims were Jews. The SS murdered the majority of them in the gas chambers. And this is them now getting off of the wooden wagon, the train, at the arrival of Jews from Hungary. And here is the arrival of Jews from Hungary. And this was before the selection. Once they arrived, Jews deported from Hungary undergoing a selection. And this image here also shows the preparing for the selection process. As you can see, this is the Jewish star, which they had to wear. And here is a photograph of a mother carrying a baby, children holding hands, with no idea, no clue what their fate would be. On the way to death. So this was after the selection. Once the prisoners, the Jews, the Hungarians, the Poles, the Czechoslovaks arrived here in Auschwitz, they would have to hand over their personal items, and the SS soldiers would collect them. After many hours of traveling, not knowing where they would arrive, they arrive in Auschwitz, and then they are sent straight to the gas chambers, to their death, after the selection process. So I'm now going to show you the canisters which contained Zyklon B, a pesticide used for killing victims in the gas chambers. And this is the Zyklon B which was used for killing the victims. And there it is, Zyklon B. This is the room exploiting the corpses, but I was unable to show you what was inside, but I can tell you it was just a pile of hair of the people that perished here. There was a big pile, so much hair. And this is it. This is the barbed wire, the electric barbed wire, separated many from the outside world, which would arrive and come through this pathway here. This exact barbed wire, which was once electric at some stage. So this here is block number 2, and to my right is block 13. Here is a map of Auschwitz Oświęcim, and this is the town, and I am located here. Here is the belongings of the victims, which were getting organized once they arrived here. Camp Warehouses Canada 1. And you can see the prisoners sorting out the stuff here from the victims, and the SS officers watching over them. So we're now making our way into block number 5, and it says material proofs of crimes. These are the belongings from the victims that were found after the liberation of Auschwitz. You can see all of the glasses here. This is the Jewish prayer shelves, and here is the room of the stuff which was found after the liberation from the disabled people with disabilities. So you can see there are crutches and so on. Here is the room of the victims' items such as pots and cups. So I'm now going to take you to a place, a very infamous and very terrible place, where millions of people were killed and sent into the gas chamber. And this is the pathway.
Hello.
Hello. And this is the guard tower where the guardsmen once were. I am now making my way along the pathway, on the walkway, where millions of people once walked. Little did they know what they were coming into, what their fate would be. Families, elderly people, fathers, mothers, loads of different kind of people walked along this pathway. And here it says former gas chamber and crematorium. This is where the camp Gestapo was located. Prisoners suspected of involvement in the camp's underground resistance movement or of preparing to escape were interrogated here. Many prisoners died as a result of being beaten or tortured. And this here is where the innocent victims were hung. From August 1940 until July 1943, this building served as a crematorium to incinerate the bodies of deceased or murdered camp's prisoners. At the end of September 1941, the first gas chamber was created in the former morgue room. The SS used it until December 1942. You are entering a building where the SS murdered thousands of people. Please maintain silence here. Remember their sufferings and show respect for their memory. I will quietly, respectfully make my way in, and I'll show you inside the gas chamber. So this is where the families were sent to their death, in the gas chamber. Says Czechoslovakia. In this room shows you the life, how people were living before the Holocaust. Hungary, and there's Poland, you can see. And these are the images of just how people were living their normal lives. The Jews, the Poles. Nazi ideology, which was based on a racist, anti-Semitic worldview, saw the Jews as a destructive race that poisons and undermines the foundation of human existence. In the Nazis' eyes, Jews and Judaism were a satanic force of seeking world domination.
Die Unklage ist eine Frage, die aus den Ewigkeiten kam.
Ich will heute wieder ein Prophet sein. Wenn es dem internationalen Finanzjudentum in und außerhalb Europas gelingen sollte, die Völker noch einmal in einen Weltkrieg zu stürzen, dann wird das Ergebnis nicht die Bolschewisten.
Ihres nationalen Bestandes bereits vollkommen abgeschüttet. Ja, in jedem Volk ist man mehr oder weniger an der Arbeit.
Here it says Nazi ideology, which was based on a racist, anti-Semitic worldview, was the main driving force behind the Holocaust of the Jewish people. So here is a map of where the other camps are located. Treblinka, Sobibor, Majdanek, Belzec, Auschwitz-Birkenau, and Chelmno. And here is how they were arriving with their belongings transported to death.
אז הוא שואל אותי, תגיד לי, למה כתוב פעמיים קבל השם? היה מספיק שכתוב רק פעם אחת קבל השם, זהו. צריכים לקוות בקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא יציל אותך ויושיע אותך, מה שאתה מבקש.
I'm about to show you a room with some drawings, and before I enter the room, I'd like to read you what it says. The artwork in this space is based on children's drawings from the war years, drawn in concentration camps, orphanages, and hiding places. The artist assembled fragments of the drawings and used a pencil to draw them on the walls in their original size. The soundtrack in the background is composed of the original recordings of the Jewish children from the war period and immediately afterwards. Most of the children whose drawings are featured in this space were murdered. All of these drawings, you can see. And I can see this is a drawing of Auschwitz-Birkenau. This is the train that everyone was arriving in. These are the families. This is the SS officers. This is where people were hanged. The names of the murdered are inscribed in this book as an eternal memorial. And the victims' names are in this book. All of these names of people are in this book. It happened, therefore it can happen again. This is the core of what we have to say. I'm now going to show you the wall where the prisoners were lined up and they were executed. They were shot and killed straight ahead. In the courtyard between blocks 10 and 11 in the years of 1941 and 1943, SS men shot several thousand people at the death wall. Mainly Polish political prisoners, leaders and members of resistance organizations died here. Poles brought from outside the camp were also executed here, including hostages arrested in retaliation for actions by the Polish resistance against the German occupation authorities. And here is the death wall. The death wall. And that was the death wall. I am now going to have a look inside the basement of block 11. So this is the camp's prison inside block number 11. So the room where summary sessions of Gestapo court were held, the most frequent sentence was the death penalty by shooting at the wall, death wall. And this is the police prisoners who were to be judged by the summary court were put on the ground floor of Barrack 11. They were not the inmates of the camp, but the Gestapo from the Katowice, the victims of Nazi terror in occupied Poland. Most frequently, they were sentenced to death, rarely to be put in KL Auschwitz. You can see the bunk beds where they were sleeping on. And here is the washroom where women stripped before execution. Then they were led into 2-yard, and shot at the death wall. Making my way now to the basement of the prison. In September 1941, the first experimental mass killing with gas Cyclone B took place in this basement. 600 Soviet prisoners of war and 256 Polish prisoners who were selected from the camp hospital perished then. In the prison, downstairs in the basement, this is where they were kept, and they would be punished here, and 4 prisoners would be standing here in such a small confined space, and they would not even be able to breathe, and it would be a way of torturing them to their deaths. People also died here in this prison. You can imagine just being in here, locked up, no lights, suffocating amongst other people. I'm now leaving, making my way out now, and it's a very sad place, and it's a part of history that everybody should know and nobody should forget. So, till next time, see you in the next video.